I was chasing so much out there to feel good within, when it was really the opposite all along. All I knew was to just do things and tie my worth to my external achievements. And slowing down felt really uncomfortable. How come this still isn't feeling enough? And how come I'm still kind of exhausted? I wasn't happy there. And so I was like, why am I staying here? And I couldn't unsee that. So finally, I decided it was time to take the leap. And that is when I booked my ticket to Bali. And I truly gave myself permission, despite that discomfort, to start to step away from the doing. And that was exactly what I needed to start to really uncover these inner truths that have been screaming at me to come up. I didn't allow this creativity and this softness and this trust and this flow to be a part of my life. I needed to soften. I needed to step into the flow instead of clinging to this incessant need to control and make sure that things are happening and busy myself and prove my worth. I truly gave myself permission to lean into my desires and what I felt called to do instead of just doing what I thought I needed to do or that I should do. No amount of external achievement, no amount of these amazing changes that I make in my life are gonna feel good and aligned and fulfilling if I don't address myself within first. Welcome to episode 200 of Fulfilled. It's pretty cool. Time goes quick. If you're not watching a video, I'm smiling right now. So today we're gonna do something a little bit different. If you're a regular listener of Fulfilled, today isn't just gonna be about one topic or lesson or insight and then me sharing personal examples to really help drive that message home. Today I'm actually gonna share with you my entire personal story. Not from the moment that I was born back in 1998, but more recently, more starting with why I started Fulfilled when I started on my journey. And I haven't done an episode like this before. And there's a couple reasons. First being, I never wanted to make this about me. I always wanted to make sure that the value that I'm offering is one that's going to support you. A message, insight, or lesson that you can truly take away to make sure that the show is of value and that you're really continuing to feel shifts from listening to the episodes. But I've actually gotten some feedback recently that people actually really love it when I get more personal. And I think there's a couple reasons there. First, I think it really helps you feel more connected to me in the show and my bigger why and purpose, and also helps you feel less alone. Through sharing my experience, you can understand why I'm sharing some of these lessons and insights, but also I know a lot of you are going to see yourself in part of my story, or at least that's my hope, because I see a lot of what I've navigated over the last few years all around me. And it continues to fuel my mission and purpose with Fulfilled and continues to help it evolve and help it pivot in these beautiful ways. And I really landed on this truth and purpose recently that I'm really excited to share with you at the end. And you're going to understand how I got there through my journey today. So today you're getting my whole story. And there's another reason that I've been hesitant to share it on here is it's vulnerable, right? It's a bit scary to have that level of vulnerability to really just share all these personal things and things that can be difficult to just like be very open about in a public space like this. So I think there is also a level of like not fully being open to get that vulnerable here. And it felt safer to just talk about, topics without revealing all these details about my life. And so today I'm embracing that vulnerability and stepping into that authenticity again with the hope that you will feel less alone and more connected to the show and my mission and purpose here. And I know, again, a lot of you will see parts of yourselves and powerful messages in this story today. So trust that you found this episode and show for a reason. And if this is your first time tuning into Fulfilled, welcome to episode 200. You're about to hear my life story. And before I dive into all of this, I just want to say thank you all for tuning into Fulfilled, for supporting the show. And yeah, maybe you've been listening since episode 1, since episode 100, since episode 199, or again, maybe this is your first time tuning in. I just want to say I'm so grateful that this episode and this message found you today. And if you have returned to listen to Fulfilled, thank you for supporting the show and taking this time and space for you. Whether you're returning or new here, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. This will give you access to episodes moving forward as we pass 200 and make our way to 300. And depending on how you guys resonate with today's message and episode, I am going to make an effort to get more personal on here. So it is always my mission and purpose to help you feel less alone and more supported and inspired on your journeys, because we are all in this together. And hopefully by the end of the episode, you will truly feel that way. And one quick way that you can help support Fulfilled and send me some love today for episode 200 is to leave a rating, review, or comment wherever you are listening or watching. If you've loved listening to Fulfilled or loved this show by the end of it, that would mean the world to me. And before I dive into the story today, yes, you've probably heard little tidbits of things that I've shared throughout the episodes if you are a returning listener. But today I'm giving you the whole rundown from start to finish. So hopefully, even if you've heard some of these references before, you'll get something different from it today. So hang with me. All right, where do we start? So from when I was young, I always knew I was going to make an impact. And I always felt called to do these big, exciting things. I thought for a while I was going to be a famous singer. I thought I was going to be a doctor to help impact people's lives and help heal them. I thought I was going to be a news anchor for a while and travel the world. I always had these big, exciting dreams. And I grew up in a prestigious town. And through middle school and high school, I noticed like the dreams were still there, but they started to dwindle, because what I started to prioritize, honestly, was just fitting in and external validation and fitting the mold. I was so just like hungry and desperate for approval from my friends and from my parents and teachers and coaches. And then college came. As I've spoken to in a recent episode, I did know deep down what I wanted, but I actually wasn't giving myself permission to do that, because I was so much more focused on that external validation and fitting in and doing what I thought was gonna, make me look cool and make sure that I wasn't just setting myself up to fail and be rejected. I was scared of stepping into my authenticity because I thought that meant rejection. So whether it be I didn't know who I was or that I was just too scared to reveal that version of myself, I entered college and really didn't know what I wanted to major in. It was a really difficult decision for the first 2 years. And by the end of sophomore year, I was like, well, I'm good at accounting. I guess I'll just take the business route because that's what's practical. And that's what a lot of people are doing. I'll just go with the masses because it seems like that's something I, quote, should do. And it seems like that's a safe and stable option for me. I was really hesitant to take a risk on doing something creative and doing something of deeper impact, which is what I really felt called to do. Another thing I wanted to do for a while was be a vet. And then I shoved that down when I realized it was 12 years of school. Like there was part of me, that left side type A perfectionist version of me, that always did want to do what was practical and stable and safe, hence accounting. So this led me down the corporate route. I went to work in corporate accounting and in the finance world. And I started my career in Chicago, and then I eventually moved to New York. But literally from day one of starting my job, I was bored by it. I literally found it difficult to sit in a desk from 9 to 5. Because even in college, it's like I was moving between classes and I rarely had more than 2 classes back to back. And I just felt so trapped and stuck in this corporate job that I didn't feel any passion or excitement for, but that I just kind of found myself in. And I honestly didn't even know how I got there. I'm like, I had all these doubts as to like why I chose that route, but I stayed anyways. And I ended up working in this corporate world for 4 years. But there was a lot that happened throughout that. So again, started out, felt not passionate about it at all. And I was living for the evenings and weekends, but even beyond my corporate job, on evenings and weekends, I felt like I was living this life in this city that wasn't authentic and true to me. Like I felt like, I was going out to bars and having this social life with these friends, but a lot of friends that I didn't feel deeply connected to. And honestly, with all these activities, like they didn't make me feel good. They actually made me feel drained and like they were pulling me away from the version of myself that I really wanted to be. Like I value living a healthy lifestyle. I value depth and quality connection. And in the whole first half of my 20s, I really felt like I was missing that. So even on evenings and weekends, I felt this kind of disconnect and lack of fulfillment, honestly. And I kind of felt this lack of understanding from other people, because in the back of my mind, I'm just like, okay, I don't love the path that I'm on and how I'm currently living my life. It's feeling, unfulfilling. It's feeling not it. And I was kind of like looking around, wondering if other people were feeling that way. I wasn't talking about it with my coworkers. I really didn't have those deep quality connections to really open up to my friends about it. Or I kind of just assumed everyone was kind of fine going through the motions in this way. And so I didn't really open up that part of myself to the people in my life. And I didn't really reveal that truth vocally because I assumed I was alone in it. And then I realized I'm definitely not alone in this. And I feel called to start to share my truth and start to create, essentially. So to take a step back, my 5th year of college, that was when I was getting my master's degree down in New Orleans. And that was also 2020, right? So COVID was happening. I was definitely like at a bit of a low place starting from senior year into that 5th year. And that's when I really started immersing myself in self-improvement, in spirituality. And I was constantly just listening to podcasts, reading books. That was also my first year living entirely on my own. And it was one of my favorite years. I was studying for the CPA exams, but in any spare moment I got, I was just like leaning into self-improvement. And I was just feeling so lit up and excited by these books and podcasts. And I was feeling so much less alone because of what others were sharing. And because of, these ways that I could shift and choose differently. And it started to really light me up in this exciting way. And so I knew that I loved consuming, and I knew that I was meant for more depth and connection because this was something I really felt drawn to. And this felt like it started to become just a true light and purpose in my life. And I knew down the line, I was like, okay, I'm going to start creating, when I can, when XYZ, right? Like when I'm no longer working a corporate job, or when I've learned enough, and when I'm worthy to create and share my message. No one really wants to hear it now. But then fast forward back to when I started my corporate job, again, going through the motions, lack of fulfillment, I decided, okay, I love to write. I'm just going to start writing in a blog. I just want to start creating. I don't need to share it with anyone, but I feel called to share all that I'm learning through my personal stories and through my voice. I just felt this intuitive nudge, even if I didn't know what it was necessarily at the time, because I was early on in my journey, that I was meant to create, and I just felt called to write. And when I started writing, I felt so lit up. I was just so excited to sit down in evenings and weekends outside of my corporate job to just write and let it flow and talk about these things that I think are truly meaningful outside of, the shallow surface level small talk at bars, or, like the work that I was dreading Monday through Fridays. This became the thing that I felt lit up by and excited about. And that passion that I felt was a sign for me that this was something that is meant to become more. Like this is something that I really feel excited to do and called to do. And part of me also deep down always wanted to start a podcast, but I felt way too terrified. And I kept telling myself that narrative of like, okay, I'll do it in the future when, just XYZ, fill in the blank. You can fill it in with a million things, but it's just that truth that a lot of us do, that we keep pushing off the thing that we really want to do because we put some future destination or our future selves on a pedestal, thinking that there's going to be a perfect time in the future, right? When we don't have that corporate job, right? When we're not going to care what other people think. But that time never comes. So fast forward, now I'm living in New York City. It was October of whatever 2.5 years ago was, 200 episodes and 2.5 years ago. I saw this reel literally on Instagram, I think. I remember this so vividly. Again, I was having this nudge to start this, but it was this reel that said, if you've been having a nudge to start a podcast, this is your sign. Just do it. Just start. Like, I kid you not. And I literally watched it probably 10 times because I'm like, this is so kismet. My new friend taught me that word recently. Shout out Rachel. Meaning like, this is so crazy and aligned and surreal. Like, is this woman in my mind? Did she just like, is this God speaking to me through this reel? And I knew it was an intuitive nudge because I couldn't shake it for like a week. Like, I kept trying to shove it down because I'm like, no, it's not the time. Like, I'm too scared to start. I wouldn't even know where to start and whatever. And then I was in the subway and I was sending one of my best friends, Emma, a voice note. And I literally said, I haven't told anyone this, but I'm officially going to start my podcast, because I had told her about that desire. I've told very few people about it, but she's someone that I really trust. And literally that week, I started it. The beauty was I had written at that point, I don't know, 100 articles on Medium on my blog. So I had 1.5 million things to talk about. So I picked the topic that I was most passionate about talking about in that moment. And I Googled how to start a podcast. And literally on my iPhone, I recorded it in my walk-in closet in New York City, because I heard that that's like, better acoustics, and I didn't have to invest in a microphone yet. So no video, into my iPhone. And then that week I created like this very suboptimal Canva cover art from just like a photo from my birthday, senior year of college. And it started. Also, fun fact, this used to be called Unfulfilled. The un was in parentheses. And I loved that. I thought it was so creative, because like we're on this journey of, lacking fulfillment in this external world towards a life that feels more fulfilling. But I had gotten feedback that it was kind of confusing with the parentheses, and I kept having to explain that to people. So in my recent evolution of updating the brand, rebranding, that's the word I'm thinking of, it became Fulfilled. And here we are. And I love it. So I felt so excited in finally starting the podcast. But at the same time, I felt so terrified, because I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. No one can find it. No one can listen. Like I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to do it. But I was terrified that friends would find it, or, that people would judge me and reject me, like let alone guys I was dating or ex-boyfriends or things like that. Like I said, I didn't reveal this part of myself to people in my life. I was always just fitting the mold and wanting to fit in and be accepted by others. I never let these desires come out. I never really opened up in this authentic way before and talk about these topics that can be taboo, because certain people don't want to talk about these deep things that I find so, inspiring. And I find this to be the true meaning of life. And if you're still listening to this, I know that you might as well. But there's a lot of people who don't. There's a lot of people who do love keeping it surface level. And that's beautiful, because we're all on our own journeys. But I think deep down I knew that. And I knew that it was going to mean certain rejection and certain loss and a lot of change once I really started to step into this. But I embraced that. And it was messy in the beginning, like made a lot of mistakes. And the truth is I did lose some friends along the way. Plenty of friends talked about me behind my back, because I started to put myself out there in this very real and vulnerable way, and in a way that a lot of people in my life hadn't seen from me before. And also sometimes this level of vulnerability and putting ourselves out there in, the messy way to be seen, a lot of people can reject that and resist that, because it's not something they're willing to do. And so I had to learn that the hard way. And it felt difficult at first, but also a lot of really beautiful things did happen. And that is, I created space for so many more aligned connections in my life, whether that be through new friendships or amazing guests that I've had on the podcast that I feel inspired by, people I've connected with on Instagram, like other podcasters or coaches. But more so, I have grown through doing the podcast in more ways that I could ever imagine. Not only my speaking ability, but also my comfort with authenticity and my confidence and just my willingness to step into my power and take up space. And every single time I sit to record, which again has now been 200 episodes, which is freaking crazy, like I feel like I step into this evolved version of myself. I learn and grow every single time I sit to record here, every single time I come share a truth and message with you. And it's been such a rewarding journey despite that discomfort. And from caring so much in the beginning, like so terrified of people finding it, to sitting here now for episode 200, it's amazing to just feel how much less I'm focused on that and how much more my focus is on just impact and connection and sharing the truth that I meant to share from a truly authentic place. And I'm still taking steps to do that. Like those muscles and the old ways will still always be there. But it's just so cool to just recognize how far I've come from that very first episode. And this can apply to any pursuit that we're on, right? Like just recognizing where we started to where we are now. and taking that moment of appreciation to be like, damn, I've come a long way and I still have a long way to go. And I'm very excited. We're not stopping at 200. So back to the story. So I was doing the podcast on top of my corporate job, which I was still working in New York for 1.5 years. It ended up being. And about when I started the podcast, actually, I also started a new corporate job. So I went from my first job to a second job. And I knew after that first job that I totally wanted to change career paths. And I was like, accounting and finance isn't it. I want to do something totally different. But then I bought into the shoulds and the narratives from other people when I got this job offer from this prestigious hedge fund that was going to pay me a lot more money. That was like a really great name on paper. And I went for it. And yes, it paid me more. Yes, it was technically more prestigious, but it was literally the same experience. It was literally just me in an office feeling like disconnected, looking around, being like, I don't like this energy. I don't want to be like these people around me. Like, I know exactly what I want to be doing, and it is not in this office doing this work, because I already felt so lit up and inspired by Fulfilled and what I was creating. And my job started to feel like it was the one thing taking me away from that. And the only purpose of my job became to make money and pay my rent and pay the bills, to be the vehicle to do the thing that I actually love, which was such a blessing for so long. I feel so grateful that throughout those 4 years, I had this job while I grew my passion on the side. And I think there's such beauty in that, and to not rush that process. Like, I knew this wasn't my lifelong career from the second I started, like I said, but I stuck with it because I was trusting the timeline and the process. And I wasn't ready to bet on myself and take that leap the first year, let alone the second or third year. Again, I was working in corporate for 4 years. So then last winter, that was when I upped it to 2 episodes a week, because I was like, I'm going to double down on the thing that I love. I still don't love my job, but I'm really ready to up-level the podcast. I was having these great guests on. I was feeling really excited. And I was seeing all these other podcasters that I look up to doing 2 or 3 episodes a week. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm not going to sacrifice taking steps towards the thing that I really want to create just because I'm in a corporate job. So I committed to doing it all. And I would say about 3 months in, I started to feel that burnout. It was a lot, because I was spending every evening and weekend working on the podcast and creating for it, even as much as I could, like during my lunch break at work or whatever. And on top of that, like when I wasn't working on the podcast, then I was forcing myself to do something social and, moving my body. It's like I didn't know how to slow down, and I always was doing something. But I don't think this burnout was just physical burnout. I think it was also emotional burnout, because I started to feel more and more disconnected from my corporate job the more passionate I started to grow about Fulfilled. As I felt more passionate and excited about my mission and purpose here and the impact that I really wanted to make, I felt more disconnected from that job that I was staying in. And I think that disconnect really started to eat away at me. And what I didn't want to do was cut back to 1 episode a week. I didn't want to sacrifice any part of what intuitively I still felt so excited and called to do. Like, I continued, despite the burnout, to feel like so drawn to share in this way and do this thing. It's why I'm still here in episode 200. Like, intuitively, even though there's been times when this has felt really challenging to keep up with along the way, and it does take a lot of effort with this consistency, I still feel this excitement and desire and passion. And that was still there last spring, which makes me know undeniably that this is what I meant to do. And this is what I feel called to do, but only I could know that. So I started to get honest with myself in this burnout. I was like, okay, I literally am so miserable at this point in this job, and I was about to just quit. But what actually got me there was this realization that, like, okay, why am I in this job? Why am I staying here? I just did some reflection and got really honest about it. And in that reflection, I realized, okay, I'm in this job, in this career, to help me live a life that I love and to be a vehicle to live a life that makes me happy. Yet I'm very unhappy currently in this situation. And so I couldn't unsee that truth. I was like, okay, this is supposed to be contributing to a life that I love. I don't think I'm making a positive impact in the world by showing up to this hedge fund and typing in numbers on Excel or whatever. So it wasn't for the impact. It was literally just for the paycheck and the money. And I felt like I was just a cog in the wheel, and I wasn't happy there. And so I was like, why am I staying here? And I couldn't unsee that. So finally, I decided it was time to take the leap. I, throughout those couple months, decided to expand Fulfilled into coaching. That was just kind of a thing that kept appearing in my life. I kept connecting with coaches that were guests on the podcast. And I kept seeing, life coaching on Instagram. And it was something I was just very curious about. Similar to maybe some of you listening, I really didn't know what it was about. But in learning more about it, it felt like a really beautiful expansion of the podcast to connect with people more one-on-one and help support people in more of a one-on-one capacity. And it did end up being work and a calling that I felt really excited about. And I ended up being really good at it. And I felt really natural at it. And I love holding space for people in that way who are navigating similar journeys that I was navigating. So fast forward a little bit, I subleased my apartment in New York, moved back to Chicago that summer, and I was growing my coaching business and growing the podcast at home at the same time. So I was free from the job. I was, I got this break from New York City, which I was so ready to get out of New York. That's why I subleased my apartment. And I was doing two things that I loved. And I ended up starting to work with 7 clients in my first month, maybe month and a half of starting my business, which I realized it was really great. And I was so excited about it. And even my business coach at the time was like, that's kind of unheard of, starting with 7 clients in your first month. Will you write me a testimonial? And I'm like, sure. But, and this is the big but, I realized okay, I'm free from that corporate job, from the life in New York that started to feel really misaligned. And I'm doing what I love. I'm getting to create for the podcast and share these inspiring messages. I'm getting to grow this coaching business and impact people one-on-one and hold that space for them to help them transform their lives. How come this still isn't feeling enough? And how come I'm still kind of exhausted? And how come I feel like I really haven't slowed down? Because I entered that summer telling myself this is when I'm going to slow down. And I really didn't. So it was I had achieved what I wanted to externally, getting to do what I love throughout the day, but I was still bringing with me that burnout wiring and that constant doing. I was just chasing more clients when I got a new client, or, I was constantly just waiting for the podcast to grow even more, to, get better guests on. And I just I couldn't stop. I just didn't know how to slow down, let alone appreciate and celebrate these wins along the way and let these changes really sink in to feel good. It felt like a dream, because I was it doesn't feel real that I left my job. And it was because I didn't slow down to really let myself feel great about it. I kept waiting for this future destination, waiting until XYZ, again, putting it off in the future, but it wasn't feeling good. I was achieving these things that I wanted to achieve, but it continued to exhaust me and make me feel burnt out and I couldn't slow down. And it continued to make me feel disconnected, and I was starting to lose my inspiration, and I was just leaning into what I should do to grow and what I thought I needed to be doing, instead of allowing my true desires and inspiration to come up. Why did I create that freedom for myself from my job if I wasn't enjoying the journey and leaning into that ability to have more balance and slow down? It's because I didn't know how. And so I knew I needed to step away and ultimately choose a new way. And that is when I booked my ticket to Bali. I ended up going to spend a month in Bali last summer, and I was taking some client calls while I was over there because these were new clients that I was working with since it was a new coaching business. But ultimately, I went over there to just step away. I was posting on social media at the time, and I fully just really stopped posting on social media. I posted maybe twice my whole time over there, and I just gave myself permission to slow down, to not achieve and not do. And that was extremely uncomfortable, because I realized it is all that I knew, from middle school to high school to college to post-college and corporate to that summer growing the business. All I knew was to just do things and tie my worth to my external achievements. And slowing down felt really uncomfortable. I really didn't know what to do about it. And there were some days there that first week that I felt really anxious, because I was well, I need to go do something. So it's actually kind of funny. I started busying myself with surf lessons and these endless walks to go explore constantly. So I wasn't really sitting still, and I was busying myself in a different way. But I realized that wasn't serving me either. And so I finally leaned into just meditation and stillness and slow down. And I truly gave myself permission, despite that discomfort, to start to step away from the doing. And that was exactly what I needed to start to really uncover these inner truths that have been screaming at me to come up. I was chasing so much out there to feel good within, when it was really the opposite all along. I needed to tune inwards to feel good about myself, to feel worthy, to feel enough, to feel love for myself and my life. If my external achievements and my external pursuits and the impact I want to make is ever truly going to feel good and aligned and fulfilling. But moving at that pace and busying myself in that way that I was for all my life, it was never going to get me there. And so this trip was a huge shift for me, because in slowing down and stepping away in this way and having this just like beautiful spiritual inward experience through meditation and through connection and just like aligned encounters and just being present with my energy, I truly softened and I truly stepped away from the forcing and the chasing. And it felt really uncomfortable at times because there was a lot of unlearning that was happening there. And I could share on and on about the shifts that I've had over there. But ultimately, I truly started doing less to step into more power than I ever have. I truly gave myself permission to lean into my desires and what I felt called to do instead of just doing what I thought I needed to do or that I should do. I gave myself permission to just flow with what felt natural instead of force, to truly just start to trust and surrender. Ultimately, it was me finally stepping into my feminine. It was me finally giving myself permission for that part of me that's been wanting to come up for so long to come up. A part of me that I forgot was even there, right? Probably didn't even know was there since I was young because I leaned so far into the masculine, right? Like I just wanted to fit in. I was paddling upstream to try to keep up with it all. I went into corporate accounting. Like I didn't allow this creativity and this softness and this trust and this flow to be a part of my life. And in that time in Bali, I let it be my entire life. And it felt so freeing. And it just opened my eyes to this brand new perspective on life. And it truly made me realize that no amount of external achievement, no amount of these amazing changes that I make in my life are going to feel good and aligned and fulfilling if I don't address myself within first. And that is truly what I needed to do. I needed to soften. I needed to step into the flow, to finally start trusting and surrendering to where life was naturally guiding me instead of clinging to this incessant need to control and make sure that things are happening and busy myself and prove my worth, to finally allow myself to listen to my desires and how my body was guiding me instead of just shoulds and need tos controlling my entire life and shoving down what my body was really guiding me towards. And this has truly allowed me to recognize what's most important. Right? It's not about external achievement. External achievement has its place and it's a beautiful thing. But if you're listening to fulfilled, and if you listen to fulfilled, what we're aiming for here is to create a life that feels good, not just that looks good, not just where we check the boxes, not just where we make more money, but do all this in a way that feels good and take that path that does feel like it's truly ours, taking steps that feel aligned and true to us. And while I was doing a lot of that throughout the story that I just shared with you, right? Like listening to the calling to start writing, to create for the podcast, to create space for more aligned friendships. It wasn't until I started to really transform in this way in Bali with these shifts where I truly began this journey of softening. And I took this back with me to my life here. When I got back from that trip, again, it wasn't terribly long, even though there was a lot that happened in that time. It was only a month. I immediately moved down to Austin. And I'm not going to lie, it was a really difficult transition back, not only because I was brand new in this city where I didn't know anyone, but also I was adjusting back to just life in the United States, where it is hustle culture. And we are told to busy ourselves and do more and achieve more. And I felt really misaligned from that. And I started to fall back into that for a little bit because I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go back to the old ways and just like busy myself and try to get more clients and like whatever. But then I quickly shifted back to all that I learned over there. And I started to bring that into my journey here. And throughout this last year, it's been such a beautiful way to live my life. It's been the foundation of my life. My theme has truly been to soften, to do less, to truly step into my power. I've truly allowed the feminine to be at the forefront while the masculine is still there, right? That doing is still there, but from a place of trust, from a place of allowing and permission and surrender. Like I feel like I'm finally just flowing downstream with life instead of just incessantly paddling upstream. But the beautiful thing is, I feel like more aligned abundance has come into my life than ever before because of this softening, because of this trust, because of this new way of just giving myself permission to trust my body and how it's guiding me, and creating for Fulfilled and the work that I'm doing with my clients and even teaching yoga. Like all of it feels so much more aligned and inspiring and exciting because it's not something that I'm telling myself I have to do or forcing. It's something that I'm reminding myself, like, I love doing this and I'm going to be present for this and listen to my body as to what I feel called to do and create today, because it is always guiding us. We just have to give ourselves that space and permission to really tune inwards, to lean into that, to tune into that. And this is still a constant journey for me. I actually think it's part of my lifelong journey, this giving myself grace and softening, coming from this type A overachiever, straight A student who, just wants to get everything right and takes that corporate path and creates a life that she thinks is going to look good on the outside and needs to be perfect in all these ways. It takes a lot to let that go, especially when I was living that way for 20 something years. And that's still a part of me that I'm really grateful for. But what this whole journey has taught me is that that's not what's ever going to lead us to a life that truly feels good and feels fulfilling. And that's where my new mission and purpose comes in. And this is what I really want to tie this all out with. It's so interesting how the podcast has taken so many different forms, right? There's been times I've talked about, push yourself even when you don't feel like it, and, just do it on the side of your corporate job. Like I was really trying to figure out, like, what message am I meant to send here? And it's only recently where I feel like this is my truth, to share this shift with you, the gift of softening, of trust and surrender, helping you truly flow downstream in your life, tuning inwards to feel enough and worthy and loved, and letting your intuition guide you instead of allowing the external to pull you in a million different directions, instead of continuing on that cycle of burnout and paddling upstream to fit in, the fear of what others might think. We're just so wired to tie all of our worth to this external doing. Maybe so many of us still don't know how to slow down and find that really uncomfortable. Maybe when those truths arise, you find yourself shoving it down. But if you're here, if you're still listening at the end of this episode, then my guess is you resonated with part of this story. And trust that you've heard this for a reason today. This message was meant to find you. Maybe this is your invitation to embark on this journey of softening, of allowing your feminine up. Whether you're a guy or a girl, we all have these parts of us that are asking to come up. So if you're feeling like you're doing a lot, but it's not feeling fulfilling, if you're feeling like you're in these cycles and burning yourself out, if you feel like that there's more you're meant to be feeling and more of an impact you're meant to be making, and just more that you feel called to, maybe deeper connections, more meaning in your life, you feel that way for a reason, because that part of you is wanting to come up, but we need to give it space too. And this really now feels like my truth to help you truly soften, to create and hold that space for you, to allow that part of you up, and to create this beautiful balance in your life. The doing and the creating and the external action, but fueled from a place of love. We have to shift internally and transform within if we expect the external to feel good. And that is my mission and purpose, both here for the podcast and also what I do in coaching. My goal and mission is to help you transform in this way, to help you finally trust and surrender and let go and see how beautiful life can get through softening. Because society and the external world will continue to pull us in a million different directions. But until we start to choose differently, that is just going to feel exhausting. And so if you're done feeling exhausted, then you are in the right place. And I'm so grateful that you're here. And I will keep showing up for you far beyond 200 episodes. So thank you all for tuning in again, whether this is your first time listening or 200th time listening. I'm so incredibly grateful for you all. If this message resonated with you today, actually, if the story resonated with you today, I'm so, so glad that it did. My hope is that it made you feel a little bit less alone and more connected on your journey. Trust what came up for you if it did. And don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening or watching for both episodes every single week of Fulfilled. Many more personal stories to come, but more importantly, to inspire you on your journey. And if you saw a lot of yourself in today's story, if there are parts that really pulled on your heartstrings, and if you really feel called to shift and transform in the same way, I would love to help get you there. You're exactly the kind of person that I feel called to hold space for in one-on-one life coaching. And I would love to help you shift and transform in this way. So if any of that just interests or excites you, check out the link in the show notes below to learn more about one-on-one life coaching with me. And you can book a free clarity session where we connect one-on-one and give you clarity and shifts right on that call. I feel so incredibly grateful for you all. And before I leave you today, just one more brief quick message. I'm hosting my very first retreat in Costa Rica at the end of January in 2027. There's only 12 spots available. This is going to be in Santa Teresa. It's going to be 4 beautiful days filled with yoga, meditation, coaching workshops, deep connection with beautiful like-minded individuals while exploring the beautiful beaches and rainforest that Costa Rica has to offer. If you've been called to explore a retreat or maybe have a little solo travel while continuing on your growth and spiritual journey, this is the retreat for you. I would absolutely love to have you there. I'll include that link in the show notes so you can save your spot. Again, only 12 spots total and registration is open now. All right. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you on the 201st episode.